Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB!
Yes. 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is Monday, Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle with you. Jim Coyle right here, as always. Looking forward to another fun Monday and another fun way of getting your week started. Get you caught up on everything that happened over the weekend. Plenty going on. Plenty coming up. Yes, we'll hit it all on the program today. No Greg Straw off this week as busy man, but Todd Leary will join us fresh off of his trip from South Carolina for the 3 SSB championship. Dustin Dopirak also from the Indy Star, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Plenty to talk about. How was your weekend, first of all? What were you doing? What did you catch? What were you watching? Looking over the Andy Moore Honda highlight or comments. Just people checking in. Pete, back from Cape Coral, looks like. Mr. Carr over in St. Louis, appreciate you. And, of course, Las Vegas, Larry. Fred over in Pennsylvania. You guys are from all over. Of course, our good friends that are joining us on 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station. Make sure you stay tuned after Indiana Sports Beat for the Sports Rush. And our good buddies down on the river, 97.7 ESPN, the ref, always the right call, up in the region, the voice of the region, 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB as well. No matter where you are, we appreciate you. Busy weekend for I don't know what you call it, high school or college hoops. It's US AAU as 3 SSB final. It comes to a head with their championship. The Peach Jam starts to take off now. Indiana Elite made it to the championship game, winning some very, very tough battles over very good teams until they were beaten in that championship game by a Utah team that knocked them out last year. So they don't win the championship, but what a hell of a season for those guys as they win every game but the last one. And so salute to them. And a lot going on down there, a lot of players, a lot of recruiting, a lot of coaches that were on hand. Unfortunately, Indiana fell to the team from Utah, as I said. I think the final score was like 61-51. But they had some battles with teams prior to that. The Compton Magic team with Koa Pete, Gilbert Arenas, his son on that team that they managed to win. But they don't get the championship, unfortunately. But what a heck of a run for those guys. Congratulations on an outstanding season. I know that not winning the championship is not fun, but you can't take away what they did, and you can go to thehoosier.com and get caught up on everything that went on with the updates throughout the weekend and overall coverage on that. So you can go there and find out everything you need to. How about this stat? Indiana wrestling, okay? This is not something we would talk about normally, but Indiana wrestling, number 16 in attendance last year in the NCAA. How about that? Angel Escobedo has done, first of all, one unbelievable hell of a job of turning that program around. Former national champion for Indiana, but they were ranked last year, and to be 16th in attendance, were you kidding me? Indiana wrestling? That's amazing. And what a hell of a job that he's getting done there. So big shout out to him. The College Football Hall of Fame, we've talked about this before, but they're going to have a problem soon because of Mike Leach. Do you consider Mike Leach a Hall of Fame coach? I mean, I do. John, do you think Mike Leach is a Hall of Fame coach? I certainly do.
He doesn't have the pedigree that, those of like Nick Saban and, those who've won several championships. He's obviously not one of those guys, but he certainly
he changed the game. He changed the game with
he was the inventor of the air raid offense, which became pretty standard, at least for a while in college football, among offensive style teams. So yeah, he definitely he made his mark on the game, and plus he's one of the more unique personalities that we've ever seen in college football. So I'd say it wouldn't be surprising if he ends up posthumously being inducted.
Well, here's the thing. You have to have a 60% winning percentage as a coach to make it into the College Football Hall of Fame, and he is at 59.6.
And you can round that up, thankfully, if they're not allowed to do that.
Nope. It is what it is. 59.6 is 59.6. So
Wow.
He does not qualify per se to their own way of doing things. And so that would keep him out, much like Howard Schnellenberger is not being allowed in right now because his winning percentage is just over 50%. But Howard Schnellenberger took a Miami football program that was nothing. It was a piece of trash and turned it into one of the most dominant college football programs that there was. Led them to a national championship, etc. He took a Louisville program that was the same. It was trash. It was nothing. He turned them into a Orange Bowl attending team program. So and then Florida Atlantic, he completely started that program from scratch. So if he doesn't go to Florida Atlantic, he probably would have been fine. But going to Florida Atlantic and from scratch, they lost a lot of games early on that just killed his record. But there's no way that both of those guys are not Hall of Famers. So somehow we've got to find a way around that. Perfect day tomorrow to talk about that with Mike DeCourcy. He'll always have a great opinion on something like that. But just my take on that. I just, there's no way that these guys are not worthy of being included and should be in. So, but we'll see how it goes. We shall see how it goes. The Peach Jam coming up, as I mentioned. Also, at the end of this week, you will see the TBT beginning and NASCAR at Indy. As NASCAR was, where were they this weekend? Daggone it. I even watched the stinking race. They were at Pocono. Unique speedway. If you watch racing at all, I love it. It's I don't know if they call it a tri-oval or not, but it is basically 3 turns. It's a big old triangle, and it's a unique race, unique track to race on, and that's the thing about NASCAR is they're always on these different tracks every week, different type tracks. You're going from a triangle last week to Indy this week, which not built for NASCAR type cars because that speedway is built for speed with these long straightaways on a 2.5 mile track, but the banking is only 9 degrees at Indianapolis, where NASCAR cars are usually used to a little bit more banking depending on the track, but tracks like that, they're used to some banking. So it will be interesting. All of the drivers will be in town and they all revere that track for what it is, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They know the history that it comes. Also, they're moving back to the oval this year after a few years on the road course because I'm trying to find a way to make that race more interesting again. It kind of it went away as far as interest. Tires were a problem. I'm trying to find the way to run the NASCAR cars on that track to where it's a fun race for people. And maybe that is back to that. Yesterday's race was not bad, won by Ryan Blaney. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens this week. We've got Chase Briscoe coming in, who is a hometowner. He's from Mitchell, Indiana, right down the road. This will be the last run of the Stewart-Haas cars at Indy because Stewart is stepping out of that, at least. So Stewart-Haas is going away. See, and there I'm sure there'll be some other local connections as well. What is the kid from up north? JJ Yaley, maybe? What? There's a kid from up there that is still running. So lots of connections, lots of local connections, and of course Roger Penske, whose team Will Power won the Indy race over the weekend, the IndyCar race. Also, Ryan Blaney, one of his drivers, he owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so it was a big weekend for Penske. So all kinds of stuff going on, people. We've got it all happening, and a lot happening in Indianapolis this week. Like I said, with the Brickyard returning, the Brickyard 400 returning. You've got the TBT, the basketball tournament for the first time ever here with 4 local teams, actually. The Butler, Purdue, and Indiana teams, in addition to Kyle Guy's Fail Harder team. And I'm trying to think if there are any others that I don't want to leave out, but lots going on. So it's going to be a very interesting week. Looking forward to it. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Yep, TBT starts on Friday, Brian. So looking forward to that. Justin said he'd like to see Tom Crane in attendance for that. I would not count on that happening. To see other comments popping through. I don't see anything. Don't ask. Caleb says, don't ask Mike DeCourcy about the Pirates taking Skeens out after 7 innings. Man, how about that dude getting the start in the Major League All-Star game, though? So there you go, that. And I was going to ask him about Skeens, man. He's I'd say he's the guy making electricity this year, but that's still not quite the case. You've got a couple of guys over on the Reds. Eli De La Cruz still doing Eli De La Cruz stuff, but they've also got a new rookie that is making a bunch of noise. He I think, became the first Major League player ever, or was it the first Reds ever, to hit 3 home runs in his first 5 games. It's mind-boggling that the Reds have all this excitement, yet they're not exactly setting the world on fire as far as their situation, I guess you'd call, in the standings. They're mired back in where are they still? Yeah, they're next to last. 8 games out. So luckily they're in the Central Division, so it's a battle that can be made, but we'll see. We've got lots to do, lots to get to, and we'll get back to it. Todd and Leary on the program today. Dustin Dopirak, Travis Miller as well. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Here's Mr. Leary.
There he is.
What's happening?
On your way back from North Carolina or South Carolina or North Carolina?
Hang on.
I said you on your way back from the Carolinas?
No, I'm back. I got back on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
I didn't stay for the semifinal and final game. I watched them on the stream thing. Probably been cheaper for me to just stay.
Yeah. Well, it didn't work out for them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Same team that beat them last year.
That team's good. That team's really good. I mean,
Well,
you can tell they've played together for a long time.
They beat a team right before that in Compton Magic that was pretty loaded as well, though. Man, Koa Pete and Gilbert Arenas' son, and there's another kid on that team.
They had no business winning that game. They should have lost that semifinal game. They should not have won that game. But that's what made them kind of fun. They've been like that kind of all year, where they just played well enough and made plays at the end and won.
Did you watch a lot of the other games?
Yeah, we stayed the whole time every day. Like
Holy
Thursday
crap.
and Friday, we were there from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. Yeah, we were diehards.
How was MP?
Good. It was good. Yeah, dinner a couple nights.
How's Dusty?
You know, I didn't talk to him in person. Like I was like 15 feet away from him like a dozen times. And we kept texting back and forth. But every time I was near him, I was talking to somebody else. And then if he was watching a game, I wasn't going to bother him.
Right.
So, I mean, he looked good. He was at all the games.
They're going to be a sneaky I've talked about, all right, who's the teams look out for? And Michigan has not been one of those teams, but let me tell you, I guarantee you Michigan is going to be one of those teams.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Right,
they're going to be one that nobody talks about all year. You're right.
Chop Shock Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by MyJumpShot.com. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started. Hope you had a great weekend and ready for it. David pointing out that the Assembly Ball will get their practice started today. Yep, as they will head into the TBT this weekend. Plenty of basketball. It's nonstop in the state of Indiana. But we before we get to that, now we've got to recoup what happened over the weekend down in Rock Hill, South Carolina, as the Adidas 3SSB tournament has been completed. Indiana Elite had a couple of teams down there, as a matter of fact, and there was another Indiana team as well. But Indiana Elite going in undefeated and one of the favorites to win the championship. Make it to the championship game. Todd Leary saw it all. And, man, I was following it along, Todd, and, there were some games that were just out-and-out battles, and especially games against teams like Compton Magic that had Koa Pete and Gilbert Arenas' son and another guy on it. There were 2 5-stars and a 4-star. They lose to Utah eventually, which beat them last year, but they get by some tough teams that was a little unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with their record, the Indiana Elite, that is, they came in as the number 1 overall seed, but there were just some really, really good players and teams in this entire tournament. I'll tell you what, if you're a basketball junkie, I highly recommend you go to one of these AAU national finals, because it's a combination of some of the most incredible talent that I could have never guessed there was that many really good players, but there were. And to your point of they beat some really good teams, like that's what made me follow this team. They have been able to find a way to play together even in games they don't play their best, they have still figured out a way to win. The semifinal game against the Compton Magic, they trailed that entire game. They really didn't play very well overall, but they made the plays at the end of the game. And big time basketball fans, especially Indiana fans, like they love watching teams that make plays at the end to win. All of Coach Knight's teams always seem to be pretty fundamentally sound and make the right plays at the end of games. And that's the way this team was. They ran into a bus. All that Utah team, you could tell they been together for a long time. They're very, very good. They play very well together. They have great stats, and they've got a guard that he takes the game over. And he didn't have to make that many plays at the end because he made them the entire game. And, overall it was just some absolute fantastic basketball. A bunch of, games were officiated really well. Like I couldn't tell you how many times I commented on how well I thought the games were officiated. They let these guys play, this is the breeding ground. This is how the officials get rated. Like this is how they, I think, move up in the rankings from maybe like Division 3 to 2 to 1. You can watch them being rated during this entire tournament. But everybody just did a great job. The facility, as I told you on the show on Thursday, was just beautiful and fantastic. Couldn't have been any better. So, man, I tell you, I walked away from that thing just so impressed with how everything was run, how it was put together, the facility. And then the players were just amazing. Like it was, I can't overstate enough how many great players there were. It was insane.
Oh, if you're anybody was as a player was there. There were so many. There were sons of players, like I just mentioned. Gilbert Arenas' son plays for Compton Magic, but you've got Koa Pete, a 5-star. There were every team had 5 stars on them. My gosh, these are the best of the best. That's why they're there. And just being kind of comical. Could it have been a wider finish than Utah versus Indiana? I mean, that's not what that's not what you're normally thinking. Utah, especially, where the hell is Utah? That's not a team I'm thinking of. Quality basketball is Utah.
Yeah, well, if you're familiar with the AAU circuit, you do understand it. Their program. Not that same team, obviously, but the 17 U's for Utah won that same tournament last year. So it wasn't a fluke. It's not like this team just all of a sudden became pretty good. Like AAU programs, especially, the state of it doesn't really matter. It is how well it's organized and who they get to come in and coach. And that's why the Indiana Elite is as good as it is. They do a great job. Their coaches have coached for years, Mike Fox and Chris Byers and Kyle Simpson and those guys have all coached not just AAU, but they've coached in high school and all that for years. They've been around great coaches. They've certainly been around great players. So it's a trickle-down effect. Like they have started really good. I watched a Utah team from the age group below, 16 U's and 15 U's, and they're all really good. Like they might be right back there in the championship next year. And so, yeah, those programs, I know it might not seem that way. Another state that has programs that are always well organized is Wisconsin. It's not always the place that you think it's going to be, and I think there's probably more talent that comes out of maybe even Los Angeles and New York programs, but the coaching is hard to beat in like places like Wisconsin, Indiana, Utah, and that. So it's just amazing basketball. I'm telling you, if you bought the $25 a day streaming package, like it wasn't just the elite games that I watched. Like I found myself, I was like, oh yeah, I want to watch that team loaded play. And like, they're all incredibly good. So it was just a fun weekend of basketball.
Well, there's all these guys that are going to be playing in college next year for all of these high level teams. That's why, I mean, how many, start listing the coaches that you saw. I know Dusty May and Matt Painter.
And this would sound like a joke, but it would be much easier for me to name the coaches I didn't see, because we had that game, kind of played that game when I was there. Mark Few from Gonzaga is probably the only big name coach I can tell you that wasn't there. I can't name another one. If you name somebody, I will tell you they were there.
That's amazing. Everybody from the Big Ten, including guys like Dusty May. And, I talk a lot about the Big Ten and what do we think is going to happen, because we don't know. It's a year that it's kind of open. And I don't mention Michigan that often, but let me tell you, that is a mistake on my part. Michigan is a very much a part of the conversation of who is going to be fighting at the top. And if you don't include them in your conversations, like I haven't been, you're making a mistake, because Dusty will sneak up on you. He's got a good team. He always puts a good team together. He puts a fundamentally good team together. That's why they're able to make it to the Final Four from Florida Atlantic. And he's going to be even more dangerous at Michigan than he was at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, everything that you said is accurate, and I agree with, except for I think it's probably going to be a year or two before we're factoring them into the top of the Big Ten. I could, I like Dusty a lot, so it won't hurt my feelings if I'm dead wrong on that one. But he's starting out for a little bit from behind the eight ball. I would not say Juwan Howard left that program in the best condition. So, they're fighting from behind a little bit. But, yeah, they're going to be good. I think we all keep waiting on Michigan State to have that, final pop-out season that Izzo has kind of before he retires. And that's just us putting words in or thoughts in the air, because he's not said he's going to retire. But, I mean, I bet he's pretty close to having a good team and then walking away from it. But, yeah, I expect them to. Rutgers, I know a lot of teams are built around the transfer portal now and the older guys, and I get all of that. But I'm going to tell you right now, the guys coming in, Harper's son, his 19th son or whatever that's played at Rutgers, and then the other kid they have that's like the number 2 rated player in the country. I forget his name, but those guys, like, Rutgers is going to be at the top of the league. I don't know if it's going to be 1, but it's going to be 1, 2, or 3. And they're just – I hate to say that because I don't think I've ever rooted for Rutgers in anything. But man, they're going to be good. And so it's really hard. We're all guessing at this point. You certainly hope. If you talk to the other Big Ten coaches, I got to talk to plenty of my friends that are coaches from around the league this weekend. And, I mean, everybody fears Indiana still. Like, they're a little bit on the edge of what's Mike Woodson going to be able to do with this, because everyone feels like from a coaching perspective across the country, other coaches feel like Indiana has the pieces to be really, really good. And, that's a fun feeling to be able to sit here in July and talk about. But just hopefully they can put it all together. It seems to, and coaches are not overlooking Indiana like you might think they have, because the record hasn't been that great. Like, they are definitely fearful of Indiana.
They have to be. I mean, there's no way. I don't want it to sound again homerish. That's the thing I hate more than anything. But they've got one of the best transfer classes in all of basketball.
Right.
They've got some of the best transfer players in all of basketball with Umar Ballo, Rice, and Carlisle. They've added perfect pieces to a team that was missing pieces like that. The only thing is shooting. That is still going to be a question mark.
Yep.
And it's not that they didn't add some shooting with Luke Goody. You would expect, I'm assuming, to see a big jump by Mackenzie Mbako, who finished the year kind of finding his groove a bit.
Right.
And I expect him to kind of hit the season in groove after getting past the opening of his freshman year and getting through learning what it's like to play at that level, what it's learning like to play in Big Ten games, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that he has those guards that will alter things for him. It's going to make it easier for those guys.
Yeah, you are spot on with that. Like, I truly believe, Indiana's point guard position is it's going to be a battle to see who's on the floor. There's going to be guys fighting for minutes. I think your point I think we all feel like Malik Renew is going to have, he's going to be better than he was last year, which he was much better than he was as a freshman. Like, I think we feel like he's going to be that on the floor leader that we need, and is all good teams seem to have that guy. And so we don't talk that much about Malik because we kind of expect greatness from him as it is. But I think you're right. I think the guy that's going to be the difference maker for Indiana is Mbako. And if Mbako has a great season, then I think we'll be saying those words are synonymous with being able to say, Indiana had a great run or played really well or was really hard to beat, because Mbako is that guy. Mbako is going to be a pro. Like he's just different. It's hard to explain. He might not be the best college player in the world. Eric Gordon wasn't the best college player in the world, but he's a 15, 16-year pro. Mbako's got that chance of being a 15, 16-year pro. And so, yeah, is it? Yeah, it's up there. And so you look at
him and
Mbako
Conley both,
and
by the way.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Like it's totally amazing. But when you look at Mbako's jump for this season, I think when he started the year out, I don't think any fan or coach or anyone that watched Indiana regularly would disagree with. He looked uncomfortable. He didn't seem to fit in. He couldn't get it going. He never had that little spark. And then I'll say, after maybe January 15th, something kind of clicked with him and he kind of got it. And his confidence level towards the end of the season, and I don't just mean shooting the ball. He was taking it to the basket. He was doing a lot of other things that it takes to win. And, that's not something a freshman always makes that jump. So to your point, I really think Mbako is going to be a super big key piece how successful Indiana is. I don't think I'm stating anything other than the obvious there, but I'm overemphasizing it because I think he's that important to them. Pieces in the guards and Omar Ballo and all that are going to be huge. But I think it's going to come back at the end of the year to Mbako and Renew, and that's going to determine how successful IU is.
And then a big question is Renew and Umar Ballo playing together. We know we're going to see it. I don't know that it's something that a lot of Indiana fans want to see, but it depends on how. To me, Renew is going to be in the offense. Is he going to camp out in the paint like it has been? If that's the case, I'm not sure how good this is going to be for Indiana's offense for those two guys to be in the paint, where again, you cannot lose games 3-2. And that's been a problem for Indiana over the last couple of years, getting beat 3-2 basically. And by that, I mean, getting beat because they're not putting up the 3-point shots that other teams are putting up now. And while Renew is capable of shooting that shot, that's not why he's in the game.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I don't when I say this, I don't mean from the 3-point line, but I think Omar Ballo's presence at Indiana, look, he's not changing how he plays. And Indiana's not going to try to change him and how he plays. He is going to camp out in the middle. And he is going to clog up the middle and be in there. That's a fact. When he's on the floor, that's where he's going to be. He's not spreading the floor out. That's for sure. But I do think this is an opportunity for both Indiana and especially Malik Renew to expand his game a little bit and let him play a little bit more, I'll call it facing the basket. It doesn't need to be from the 3-point line, maybe 17 feet. If he can develop a little mid-range game, he can already shoot the 3-pointer pretty well. And so I don't think that they will dissuade him from shooting that. But I don't think it's going to be a big part of the offense for Malik. But I do think that him spreading the floor and playing outside of the paint, which is great for him. We all know he wants to play in the NBA. That's the ultimate goal for all of these players. And his role in the NBA is going to be facing the basket a little bit more. And so this is a great opportunity. I'm sure this was a selling point for getting him to come back, is he gets to develop his game a little bit and be a little bit, adds another piece to what the pros are already excited about what he can do in the NBA. So those guys will play together quite a bit. I also, if you watched Arizona play very much over the last 2 years, Omar Ballo is not a guy that plays extended minutes. He's like a 20 to 24 minute guy.
Yes. And I don't see that going up at Indiana because Indiana is so much deeper this year.
Well, and I don't think it needs to. I think that's probably what he's recruited as. If he plays in the NBA, that's what he's going to be at in the NBA. I don't think they're going to try to turn him into – Zach Edey was a freak. That's a dude that could play 36, 38 minutes a game at his size. Donovan Clingan couldn't come close to doing that. He was more of a 26 to 32 minute guy. And so I think that's where we're going to be with Omar Ballo. I think he's going to be a guy that plays the mid minutes, which is great. I think that works out terrific for Indiana. If Kalel Ware, you wanted to keep him on the floor as long as possible, as long as he wasn't in foul trouble. And so that, I don't want to use clog up because that means I'm talking about the middle, but I mean, that took up minutes of players on the floor. And I think Omar Ballo gives you the opportunity to, one, play two big guys together that we know, or we've definitely seen what Mike Woodson likes to do. But on the other side of that, it also gives Indiana a chance to go faster and smaller because we know he's not going to play, 16 minutes out of every half. And so I'm excited at how these guys are going to fit together and play together. Coach Woodson has a great problem to have, and that is he's got a lot of players that probably deserve to be on the floor, and it's going to be fun to try to figure out who gets to end up being there.
Well, something, and I've already mentioned, but I'll mention again, is the guards for Indiana. Not only is it extraordinarily deeper than it was last year, we're not talking about just being deeper. We're talking about Kanan Carlisle is currently set ahead as an NBA draft pick next year, ahead of Mackenzie Mbako. So that has to be a great confidence booster for this team, in addition to knowing that Rice also wasn't he the Pac-12 freshman of the year last year, or was it Carlisle? I get him confused. But anyway,
but they're both used to playing
very
big
good.
Minutes. Yep, and they are. And they're used to playing big minutes. And so, like, if you just it's what us nerds do in the summertime. But if you just sit down and try to figure out who's going to be on the floor for Indiana, well, that's not an easy.
I've done it, and it gives you a headache.
It does. I mean, you see the problem that Mike Woodson's going to have. I mean, Trey Galloway, when he's healthy, I mean, he's been in the past a 36-plus minute a game guy.
That is no way that can happen this year. That's not possible.
We can say that now, but you don't know how things are going to play out. I will say this: I'm in agreement with your statement, unless there's a dramatic improvement in his game. If he develops a very, very not just consistent but accurate and high percentage jump shot, it's very difficult to keep a guy like Trey Galloway off the floor.
Yeah, well, exactly, because Mike Woodson has shown he is loyal to the guys that have been there. Obviously, Trey Galloway has been there for a long time, played a ton of minutes last year and out of position at times, and did what was needed of him for the team. But actually, that team probably overachieved last year with what they had to work with as far as guard play and all of that after the injuries. They probably overachieved. I mean, you've got a guy that's playing out of position in Trey Galloway, just doing whatever he could to help out, and Gabe Cupps, who was forced into duty, not quite ready for it. So Indiana was a team that was playing without a full complement of what they needed. This year, right now, that does not appear to be the case, and it appears to be more so than what they need.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with they overachieved. I mean, if they'd have made the tournament, maybe you can make that statement. It's hard to say a team that did not make the tournament overachieved. But I know what you're saying, and I get where you're coming from. Just the way things played out, it sounds like we're just crying wolf out here saying injuries, changed the whole dynamic of last year's team. But injuries changed the whole dynamic of last year's team. And they were never capable or even close to capable of reaching their potential because of injuries and the time of when they happened. But I'll also say, and I say it every time, every team across the country at some point seems to deal with injuries. And so you can't really use that as an excuse. Yes, this team seems to be incredibly deep at more positions than what they were last year. And, it's going to take an improvement from guys that were there last year. They're going to have to get better in order to see, even close to the same minutes that they saw last year on the floor. Gabe Cupps, Trey Galloway in particular, those two guys are going to have a pretty dramatic improvement in their game in their respective years for where they are at Indiana in order to see significant minutes on the floor. And I'm not saying that to badmouth anybody. I hope that comes across as a positive. It means Indiana's deep. But I'll also say this. I think we've said that exact same thing about Trey Galloway for the last 2 years, and somehow he's just that dude you can't keep off the floor because he makes plays. And so hopefully injury doesn't factor into it there. But, Indiana's got the pieces like that. As I told you, it was brought up to me with all my other friends that are coaches. So I try to not be a super homer IU guy, but these coaches all brought it up to me, and they know Indiana's roster. They know how they would be. They sit there and play these games, I think, when they're on their plane or flying or talking to their assistant coaches of where they would piece guys in if they were coaching Indiana or whatever. And so I think it's been thought of more than what you might guess, because they're still factoring in.
I can imagine, because there's everybody knows what Indiana does have now this year. Last year, there was just nothing but questions. And this year, there are a lot, those questions are kind of answered prerequisite because of Rice and Carlisle, because we've already seen what they can do. But guys like Gabe Cupps, Gabe Cupps has worked his butt off this offseason. What that's going to translate to, we'll have to wait and see. But I know that he has worked his tail off. Ja'Kai Newton, we know he desperately wants to play. Walker, freshman, don't know what that's going to be like, but he's a uber talented kid. So there are so many positive questions going forward, but that's a good thing to have.
Yeah,
Todd Leary.
I mean, in a great position. Yep. Sorry, buddy.
It's all right. Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com. Make sure you reach out to him. For those of you that have kids, know of kids, or anyone that needs to work on their jump shot or the just basic fundamentals of basketball, true fundamentals of basketball, reach out to Todd at myjumpshot.com. Todd, we'll talk to you again soon, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
You betcha. And more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, just reach out to her. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference in getting the home you want or not. Yet to come, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload, much more to talk about here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Back right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home in
Hey, would you rather have Travis at 10 o'clock or 10:20? I figured you might want to take Dustin Dopirak twice. That's why I asked.
Yes, definitely, but like Dustin for 2 segments.
Yeah, because he's not on this. He's on at 9:40, so I'll let Travis know we can do 10:20 with him.
I was getting I was wondering about that. So this is an open segment?
It is, just for a few minutes. The reason we started doing that is because for a while you were taking Todd twice. That's why it's like this.
Yeah, that's cool. That cool, man. That cool. My darling,
All right, here we go. You'll have about 8 or 9 minutes here.
For 90 days. That's right. 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, getting your week started off. Hope you're ready for it. I hope you had a great weekend, by the way. It wasn't too bad out there. I can't believe it. Global warming, schwarming. I mean, it's been to me, it's been a spectacular July. John, would you agree with that, man? I mean,
I would agree, but I don't know if you've looked at today, but I believe
that's
we're
okay.
reaching the upper 90s. It's here.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's not abnormal.
Yeah.
The other days, even the ones that kind of get warm at night, it's not been that terrible. The humidity hasn't been that terrible yet.
Yeah, as long as you're not reaching upper 90s for 4 or 5 days at a time, it's not too bad.
Or 8 days at a time. Yeah. But we still have the dog days of summer to come yet. I mean, we're burly. Well, no, that's not true. We're halfway through July, man. So
yeah,
really, you got about 6 more weeks of potential.
That's usually once you hit September, you can start noticing
September
the true relief.
Comes. Yes. And football season, baby. August 31st, game 1.
It's coming.
It is. It's. I mean, usually June, July, August are all not. I don't want to say. Well, they are slow, considerate of everything else. It has been nonstop this year. There has been like maybe a week or two here and there where it wasn't something going on, but it has been a nonstop summer for Hoosier sports in my mind, or Hoosiers that live in the state, for sports across the board. And it doesn't matter what we're talking. I mean, you go from basketball, of course, to the NCAA tournament and the NIT tournament. And so then you've got that ends.
And one thing that really drug it out more so this year, I think, was the fact that the Pacers made such a deep run in the NBA tournament playoffs. I should say, no, almost said NCAA tournament, but
you've got
them making a run definitely elongated.
That's a great point. And the Pacers, and then you had the fever that started, boom, right off out of college basketball, and the Caitlin Clark effect, boom, that started things. Then there were multiple AAU events that were going on in the state. Then you have Indiana Elite doing so well, traveling off. Then you had, of course, we had the month of May with Indy. June was a more basketball, probably, if anything. Then now we're in July, and we've got just finished with the 3 SSB championship. Now the Peach Jam, Nike Peach Jam is underway. The TBT starts at the end of this week. Indy at the Brickyard is at the end of this week. And then you've just got a week and a half of July left. It's fall camp time, people. Football starts, and you're a month away. August 31st is the first game. So
and that's just for Indiana, because I do believe there's a week before. I'm trying to pull up now who's in those.
Week zero stuff. Now that would be amazing, because that would make the August 24th the first game. And
that is true, and that's also my birthday. Starting college football on my birthday this year. It's pretty cool. So week 0, the opening games for week 0. There's more than one day of week 0, but the opening day itself, that Saturday, there are 4 matchups. Delaware State versus Hawaii, not a very intriguing matchup. Florida State versus Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. So that's our annual Ireland game. That'll be on ESPN. Montana State and New Mexico. Again, not super intriguing. And then SMU and Nevada. Those are your 4 matchups that get us rolling for the first college football Saturday of 2024.
Yeah, I think the week 0 has lost its appeal, and and I'll be honest with you, it's stupid. It's just stupid. Just go with week 1, and you've got each team has 2 bye weeks. So
yes,
that makes the season 14 weeks long in and of itself right there. Once it begins, that's enough. It's 3.5 months, thereabouts. So all of September, October, half of November, but with the bye weeks, those games end up at the end of October, right at there at Thanksgiving. So
I do like the now annual tradition of having a game in Ireland, though, to start things off. I don't know why that's so cool to me, but that's pretty unique that's kind of how college football's begun now for the last 3 seasons. You had Nebraska and Northwestern 2 years ago. Last year you had Navy and Notre Dame. And this year you got Florida State and Georgia Tech kicking things off in Ireland.
I wish it was Indiana. That would give me a great excuse to go to the home country.
And maybe it will someday. It may. I mean, if you get lucky, sometimes if you're playing a marquee team that can send you over to Ireland for week 0, then that would be the reason Indiana would get selected for something like that, I believe.
Yeah, I saw someone make fun of my British accent in the comments once, and of course, that's just a joke. But I don't even try. I am 75% Irish. I don't even try to do an Irish accent because it's difficult. I haven't practiced it, and it's hard. So I don't even try to do that, which is ironic. But yeah, man, there's a lot of action coming up, and we'll be covering it all for you. The TBT starting this week. Looking forward to that. Hopefully we can maybe get some other participants on this week as we head into that. But that is going to be an exciting thing for fans. In addition to the Fever playing very, very well right now. See someone mentioned that earlier. Yeah, we'll talk about the Fever. We're not afraid to talk about. As a matter of fact, I remember seeing a couple of stats, and I hope that this is correct off of my memory, but Caitlin Clark, there was a 5-game stretch in which she scored like 92 points, had 60 assists, if that sounds right. And there may have been another stat along with it, but if I remember correctly, no player in WNBA history in any 5-game stretch has scored 90 and has gone 90 and 60. That, if that is the case, that is an unbelievable stat, because that gives you a snapshot of her game. That gives you a snapshot of how good she is, how good she can be, and how much better it's going to be in the future. But we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll talk about that and more. Dustin Dopirak joins us next from the Indy Star, brought to you by Freethink Apparel and Promotions. Whether it's 20 T-shirts for the family reunion or 24 for this summer's baseball, softball leagues, whatever you got going, reach out to Freethink at freethinkapparel.com. Their team of industry experts will work with you to design a professional-looking, sales-generating web store for your custom designed apparel promotional merchandise. Just reach out to freethinkapparel.com today. Get printing. As a matter of fact, we're going to have our own store up in not too much longer from Freethink. So we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Hasn't Notre Dame played in Ireland?
That's what I just mentioned. I played last year against Navy.
I thought last year was Nebraska. And...
That was 2 years ago.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame was last year. Wow.
It was Notre Dame and Navy. Good morning, Dustin.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Good.
You need a haircut.
What's up?
You need a haircut.
happily got one. It was getting rough.
You know, back in the days of the Andrew Griffith Show, I guess they'd get a haircut like once a week, so
Really?
you could never tell it was cut. Of course, it only cost like $1 or something.
That sounds glorious.
Floyd didn't charge much.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it was.
I would love getting a haircut every week. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't justify that, but
Well, not many of us can, but yeah, that would be cool. That way, you never looks like you get a haircut.
right, exactly.
What's new with you, brother? How was your weekend?
Good. Yeah, no, just watching some summer league. Obviously, had the Jim Morris news Saturday morning, which is sad.
Oh,
But,
yes, I wanted to talk about that with you specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, he's getting as much love as anyone of any recent mind here.
And deserved, yeah, for sure.
Oh, what else is new, brother? Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, Matt. We had friends of ours came into town on Saturday. Well, mostly friends of MJ. She's from like her school friend. She's got one of her best friends lives here, and then another one came up from Cincinnati to visit us. Like her husband, their I think 1-year-old son. So that was kind of cool. Just kind of hung out in the Irvington area on Saturday. Yeah, and that was most of it. And Friday, Sunday had to cover summer league games, but just from TV. But yeah, that was good. So getting to be the less busy part of the year. Not upset about this.
Well, that'll change soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, it'll be a couple months and we'll be right back in it. But I'm taking the time while I can.
All right, here we go, guys. Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you very much for being with us. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star joins us now. And Dustin, the state, the city of Indianapolis lost a great person here recently, and Jim Morris. He an IU and Butler grad. He was a civic leader. He just had his finger was on a lot that has to do with the state and the city of Indianapolis, and was looked upon as just one of those great leaders that has made Indiana and Indianapolis better and have helped them become what they have become. And he was a much beloved figure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a guy who, just going back to the 60s, had his hands in just about everything. I mean, he was chief of staff. Basically, his first foray into anything into politics and whatnot was he was Richard Lugar's chief of staff from 1967 to 1973, and from there,
he was mayor, right?
Yeah, Richard Lugar was mayor at the time. Yeah, and Lugar obviously became a senator. Lugar was, and he was one of those guys who was just got stuff done regardless. He was the guy who really knew things, basically, regardless of party. He wasn't sort of one of those that stood on having to be on this side or the other, but was very good at crossing over and sort of understanding the topic he was dealing with. Basically, whenever he sort of rose up in his political career. So, I mean, it was sort of, it makes sense that Morris would be part of that team. And this was really at a time when Indy could have gone a couple different ways. Basically that there was a lot of talk around then about moving, basically having, stadiums outside the city. I mean, this was obviously, again, a time when you started to see that movement, toward sort of suburban areas. You started people moving towards sort of suburban areas, which is a longer story in itself, obviously. But you started to see, cities moving their stadiums out there and basically just making more use of, part outside of town. And Indy had to decide what direction it wanted to go. Whether it was going to move all its stuff out to like Noblesville or whatever, or just invest in downtown, and decided to invest in downtown. And that obviously changed the trajectory of the city entirely. And Richard Lugar had a lot to do with that. And so Jim Morris had a lot to do with that. I mean, he made a big push for Market Square Arena. And then after he was in Lugar's office, went to the Lilly Endowment and had a lot to do with funding the Hoosier Dome. And so obviously, obviously brought the Colts, to Indianapolis in the first place. So, like the fact that you have these two stadiums downtown, I mean, Jim Morris is one of those guys you have to credit for them even being here, having two professional franchises in the city to start with, and that wasn't at all it. I mean, he had a lot to do with funding Indiana Sports Corp. He had a lot to do with putting together IUPUI. He had a lot to do with the Indianapolis Zoo. He had a lot to do with the White River State Park project. Basically just about any major project you can think of that happened in Indianapolis, Jim Morris had something to do with it. Just an incredible guy, and he didn't stop there. I mean, like it wasn't like once again he continues to build outward throughout his life. It starts in Indianapolis and moves outwards. He was part of the Indiana Water Company. He went from there, from the United World Food Program. He's got he got a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award from Obama in 2016. Just the guy just continued to bring stuff to people. He had a good idea of understanding how to fund major projects and how to get people behind major things. Again, he had his hands in everything. It's just one of those figures that is absolutely critical to building Indianapolis up to what it's become.
Absolutely. And and
he was IU Board of Trustees and president of IU Board of Trustees, and kind of maintained his his dedication to the IU community is also a big part of it as well. So that can't be forgotten.
No, and that just shows you he's someone who wasn't biased as far as trying to help just a particular group. He was wanting to help the state, right, the citizens, everything. And you can't have enough people like that, because they're especially in today's age. My God, there's nothing but partisan everything. And you mentioned Richard Lugar. He was a Republican, but no one, you knew that, but you didn't really know it. Where today it's like, that's like the first thing someone knows about you. He was, someone that's back when politics were a little more, had the ability to reach back and forth across the aisle, and we're not seeing that right now. Not that I want to get into politics.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a reason why he lost his primary, though. Like the reason he got out of politics and lost his primary is because they ran a whole bunch of ads saying that Barack Obama was his best friend. So we'll keep that as part of that. He eventually paid a price for that. But yeah, so add that piece to it. But yeah, no, I mean, he was a spectacularly well, just achieved a lot in the areas of, like I said, in foreign policy and whatnot. Richard Lugar is a just esteemed figure, and always has been. So, but yeah, no, I mean, so Morris had a sense of that. I know. So I got to meet him once, and so I should tell the story. Basically, I went out to dinner with Rick Carlisle once. He invited me out last year when we were on the road in Oklahoma City.
That's the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, for those of you not in the know.
This doesn't happen all the time, frequently, and just for the record, I paid for my own meal just in case anybody's wondering. But where
did you go eat, first of all?
What's that?
Where did you go eat?
It was a steakhouse in the Omni in Oklahoma City. I can't remember the name. It was phenomenal, as you can imagine. But there's, Oklahoma City's not a huge town, but it was like a couple. They stayed at the Omni a couple blocks away from Taycom Center. So I went over there, just basically was at the team hotel. But so got to meet with Jim, and it was an amazing story. He told me a story too. I think Micah Shrewsbury's dad was on just high up in the staff. He was an engineer, and he was high up in the staff of Evan Bayh. So kind of on the other side, there's two guys that really sort of meet in the middle in Indiana politics. And he told me a story that basically like they always met for breakfast, when they were sort of in town doing a lot of things together. And they met on the morning of 9/11, and it was basically they made a point every year after that to have breakfast together. Basically just after they happened to be together when that happened, and they made a point of doing that. So I thought that was sort of one just sort of many fascinating stories. I got to hear from Jim just on that evening. It was just like I said, fantastic guy. Was a blast to get to meet him. And so I texted Rick this weekend to say, like, I appreciated the opportunity to do that. Basically just to be around a guy that's done that much. So I thought that again, that was kind of an honor and a privilege. And so just was sad to hear that news on Saturday morning when I woke up. Just incredible guy.
Yeah, and a big loss for the state, no doubt. Something I was going to add to that. Not trying to get into politics, but there's no way to ignore what happened over the weekend as well with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I haven't brought that up yet, but I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Trump, if it's Biden, if it's Kamala Harris, if it doesn't matter. That there's just that America cannot become a third world country, man. That stuff is not acceptable. The fact that this kid was a 20-year-old kid, they're finding like nothing out about him either. That's even scarier. That it's like, what?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, it goes back to, but like we've started, the unfortunate part about this though is that it gets into a whole bunch of things. Like obviously the presumption is the target that it must be political, and we don't know that. We don't know what his motivation was. We don't know where he got information from, and he a lot of times when you see something when it is politically directed, you tend to find a whole lot of social media presence of him being on one side or the other, being vocal about it and just sort of being led to the point. You're not seeing that with this kid so far. And I say kid, I mean, he's 20. I mean, like, I understand that he is an adult. It was an adult. But obviously you're just not seeing a lot. And it gets into the discussion of guns. And so the thing about it is, if I get into the discussion of guns, we're going to go down a different path here. But obviously you've seen sort of some of this lone wolf, mentality. They said that he was bullied in school and whatnot. So obviously, again, to your point, it cannot happen, but we don't even know what this guy's motivation was. We don't know where this came from.
No, he was registered as a Republican, and not that matters. He was 20 years old, but
right. I mean, I don't know. We have no idea why this happened.
It's just the fact that it happened. That's the whole thing. I don't care
bad. It's
which
bad.
Side that you're on. It's just
there's nothing good about it. Obviously, multiple. One person was killed. Another person, I understood. The last I heard was he was in serious. He or she was in serious condition. I don't even know anything about the second person. I just saw the news on the other person's death, and obviously that's just it's a horrible story, and it's going to keep being a horrible story.
Absolutely, and we'll hope that everyone else comes out of that okay. But I didn't want to ignore it. Didn't want to turn it into something. Again, we politics is something we stay away from here because there's no point in that. But there's some things that are just bigger than that, and that is one of those things. But getting back to, how about the Fever, man? The Fever are slowly kind of coming into their own. I know that's not your beat, but just being part of Indianapolis, being part of the Pacers, they're they started out 0-7 or whatever the start of the year was, and if you take that start away from them, they're now 10-7. So kind of finding their groove. Caitlin Clark, I gave a stat a minute ago that, if it's correct, I think I saw yesterday, that she is the first player in WNBA history over a 5-game span to score over 90 and have over 60 assists.
I didn't see that, but that's pretty amazing.
Yes, first player ever, not rookie, ever. She just became the first rookie to have a triple-double. So she's and yet she leads the league in turnovers, but that's going to happen. I mean, I talk about this all the time. Michael Jordan was not Michael Jordan when he came into the league. It took how long for him to win his first title? I mean, they had to go through the powers that be, whether that was the Celtics, the Pistons, the Lakers, whomever. They weren't it. He just didn't come in and take over.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, they've really come around, and it's critical to note. It's not just Caitlin Clark. I mean, they have 3 All-Stars, and there's a reason for that. You know, Kelsey Mitchell's a vet. I mean, I've been watching her for years, and she's a really, I think she's just a really impressive player. She had 21 the other night, 8 of 18 from the floor, 3 of 9 from the field. You know, Aaliyah Boston's really putting it together. She had 17 and 16 against Minnesota. You know, I think Melissa Smith is a nice player. She had 11. You know, there is some depth there, and you know, a lot had to come together. I mean, part of it, you know, with them, for one, the WNBA is a tough turnaround to start with, you know, because you have this kind of packed in season. You know, and for women who are just drafted, you know, you're talking about you play a whole, you know, college women's basketball season, and then, you know, 2 months later, or a month and a half later, if you make it to the Final Four, you know, you're in your professional career and you're in it. You know, even baseball gets drafted, you know, and they've even pushed it back. So the draft was last night. It used to be, you know, the week of super regionals, basically. And at least they get to go to the minor leagues, you know, that they're not immediately thrown onto the big stage. WNBA, you are. And, you know, because Caitlin Clark is Caitlin Clark, because she's this big of a phenomenon, she's, you know, they wanted her on TV, and they wanted her on TV against the best players. And they were just throwing game after game after game after game to take advantage of these television windows. And they were like, we haven't practiced, you know, like they'd barely practiced other than camp. Like they couldn't spend a lot of time taking what was wrong in the first couple of games and fixing it, because it was just like you had another game, and you had travel. So, you know, like this is evidence of a group that's finally had a chance to get to know itself and to get to know each other. So, you know, like just, you know, I mean, I didn't have a chance to watch it last night. I watched it the other night against Minnesota, but I'm just looking at these stats. I mean, like, it's, you know, good defensive numbers, you know, they're getting better at that. I mean, there's just clear sign of, you know, all in all, just improvement basically, and just a group that has a better sense of who it is, who it wants to be, you know, how it has to operate, and, you know, just it's best players working in concert. And so, you know, I mean, they have, again, 3 all-star caliber players, you know, together basically. And so, and again, like the tough part about the WNBA is because it is concentrated, because you only have 12 teams, you know, you have a lot of talent. And so it's hard to move up the ranks in the WNBA because, you know, everybody's loaded, and there's not a lot of, you know, it's hard to make the WNBA. You're only talking so many spots. You know, it's hard to stick because, you know, and so when a team gets established, it's hard to take them down. You know, like it's just not easy. And so, you know, that they have their established stars, and so moving up the ladder is difficult. And so you're seeing that. But I mean, they've won some big games lately. You know, Minnesota, I know they beat the Liberty lately. You know, you're seeing some real growth out of this team. And I think that's probably was to be expected. It was going to go this way. That it was going to take a while. That they were going to struggle early. Again, especially because of the because of the microscope they were put under, and because of the tough situation they were put in, it was going to take a minute, but they're figuring it out, and they're getting together pretty fast.
Yep, and looking forward to as they continue to come around. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the Pacers. In addition to who's your favorite baseball team? I'm going to go with the Pirates.
Oh yeah, that's where I'm from. I mean, yeah, so they got to 500 this weekend. We'll talk about
Mr. Skeens a little bit, getting the start in the Major League game or the All-Star game as well. Mm-hmm. So that's coming up. So plenty more to get to as Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Boost Fundraising. If you know of anyone in need of a fundraiser, Boost Fundraising does it faster and much easier with the most user-friendly fundraiser around, offering the most unique, and it raises more money than anyone. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all, whether it's for sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, or community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo code COIL to receive a discounted fundraiser. Back with more Dustin Dopirak right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly BB's. Man, the Reds look like they're a team leading a division, because every time I turn around, you've got either Eli De La Cruz doing something, doing Eli De La Cruz things, or the rookie. I can't think of his name right now.
Hines.
Yeah,
Reese Hines. Thank you. Who has hit 3 home runs in his first 5 games? That's a first in either team history or major league history. But yet they're like 1,000 games back in one of those divisions.
They're not that far back. No, I'm just looking at it.
No, they're in the Central Division, so you can't be that far back. But
no, I mean the National League's basically got 4 teams running ahead of everybody, and then everybody else is more or less in a pack. So like the Cardinals are 50 and 40. I mean, it's Philly, the Dodgers, Milwaukee, and the Braves, and then the remaining spots are up for grabs. So, but
one of those goes to the Dodgers.
No, like the Dodgers, the Phillies, Milwaukee, Atlanta is Atlanta right now is your top wild card team. They're 4 up on everybody else, on everybody else in the wild card standing.
And St. Louis is right behind them.
Yeah, well, not right behind. They're 3.5. St. Louis is 3.5 back of Atlanta, and then you have the Mets are currently holding the 3rd wild card spot. They're a half game up on St. Louis, a game and a half up on Pittsburgh, 3 up on Cincinnati, 3.5 on Chicago, 1 on Arizona, 1 on San Diego, 3 on San Francisco. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Basically 8 teams within 3.5 games. If you count St. Louis as being part of it, that's 8 teams within 3.5 games of each other.
The Pirates took a great advantage. The Brewers 3-7 in their last 10 games. The Pirates 7-3. So they have taken.
They're moving up.
They took big advantage there. They were probably 10 games back 10 games ago.
Right. And they're not catching Milwaukee. They're not. I know them well enough. But yeah.
The Reds are a game and a half behind them. Payment free for 90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday, getting your week started right. Hope you had a great weekend. Major League Baseball still tooling along as we're about at when is the All-Star game?
Tuesday. So the break started last night.
I was going to say
the draft last night. Monday, home run derbies tonight. All-Star games Tuesday.
We were talking in the break about, of course, my team are the Reds, and every time I turn around, there's something exciting going on with the Reds, whether it's with Eli De La Cruz or Reese Hines, who is also a rookie who hit 3 home runs in his first 5 games. Of course, that sounds like stuff that Eli De La Cruz was doing. He's still doing crazy stuff, stealing second when the catcher's throwing the ball back to the pitcher. I mean, Little League stuff you did in Little League and saw in Little League, which it makes it just, you're like, cool. But the Reds are freaking 8 games back of the Brewers in the Central Division, although Brewers have gone 3-7 over their last 10. But we're at the midway part of the summer, and so maybe we'll see some changes. Of course, I assume that Dustin's team, the Pirates, they're holding sway right in the middle of the Central Division. They've gone 7-3 over their last 10, and they've taken advantage of Milwaukee's little miscues. But baseball is getting a little bit more and more competitive, I guess. And I think Dustin froze up. John Boy, let me know if when he comes back to join us. Lost him for a second. But John, who's your baseball team, by the way? Is it the Reds?
I don't really have a team that I genuinely root for, but I guess by association, I would be a Reds fan if you're just basing it off of location. I don't follow it as hard as most people, but you can pencil me in with the Reds fans. That's fine.
I love the American League East because right now you've got the Orioles atop that one. Dustin joining us back here, and I tabbed him. That's all right. I tabbed him a Pirates fan just because of location. And
I mean, I definitely grew up one. I feel weird saying I'm a Pirates fan after I've covered them, but they are the team that I focus on. But yeah, no, to Cincinnati's point, or to whatever point, I missed part of this. But it's I mean, everything past the four, you've got Philly, LA that look incredible, Milwaukee and Atlanta that look really, really good. And after that, it's really wide open. So, Pittsburgh's got a shot, Cincinnati's got a shot, Chicago's got a shot, the Mets have a chance, San Diego, Arizona, every one of those teams has a chance to grab. St. Louis, it has a chance to grab the last two wild cards. Like everything is up in the air. Basically everybody's got, like they've all got talented players. They've all got problems. I mean, the Pirates offense after Brian Reynolds is brutal most of the time. O'Neal Cruz, when he gets into one, can hit it into the river. But after that, there's not a lot of depth of that offense. Obviously, Skeens is what everybody's talking about because he's just been an absolute revelation. And
I was getting ready to say that between Eli De La Cruz and Reese Hines on the Reds and Paul Skeens on the Pirates, both teams that are mired in mediocrity right now, but have three of the most electrifying players in the National League at the moment, where everyone's eyes are on. Kind of odd.
That's what happens when you're bad. You get to draft good players. When you're consistently bad and you get enough number one picks, at some point when you get to get the best player in amateur baseball, you should hit one of them. So it's like they had a tough call between Skeens and Dylan Cruz, who's also phenomenal, basically out of that LSU championship team that was just unreal. And so, Skeens, if you pick number one enough times, and the Pirates basically did it in more or less back-to-back years. Basically had Henry Davis after that, and Henry Davis hasn't been a hit. But if you get to pick number one a bunch, you better get it right at some point. Basically, so I don't know when Eli De La Cruz was drafted. I'm going to look him up on Baseball Reference as we're talking, but I mean, he's obviously just an incredible, an absolutely incredible specimen. I mean, 6'5", 200 pounds, shortstop. I mean, these guys are just rare. I mean, like, when was he? I don't even know when he was drafted. Was he even drafted, or was he just one of those guys that they found in the Dominican Republic? I mean, he's just an incredible 46 steals at the break is nuts. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. To go with 17 home runs, he's just an incredible athlete. So yeah, like the bottom line is when you're bad, it's not like it. Obviously, it's the Yankees that are signing the free agents that are and the Dodgers that are getting, Shohei and Soto and everything like that. Like later in their careers, once they've already, gone into free agency and whatnot, basically when their contracts have been up or when they start to get the big money. But, early in their careers, it is teams like the Reds and the Pirates that should get these superstars because, again, if you get the draft that high, you better not screw it up all the time. But they are really showing out just how talented they are, and it's been incredible. And Skeens is throwing Hunter on the dot, and this thing they call a splinker with the split finger and the sinker that's just got incredible movement on it. And just right now, nobody can touch the guy. I mean, obviously, you see with pitchers that if you're that effective, there's probably a reckoning coming. But right now, It's just amazing to watch, and every time he's out there, he's incredible. The other night it was 7 no-hit innings before they pulled him. I guess it was Thursday afternoon. He was throwing against the Brewers and just shoved for 7 innings. They obviously decided after 100 pitches they weren't going to test that arm, and I understand why, again, because just there's a Tommy John epidemic. But it was a bummer not to see him go for it, but still you understand it, and he's getting start after start at that level, that he's nearly unhittable right now.
The NBA Summer League is rolling on. I think this was day 7, or day 7 has been completed. And of course, Zach Edey, Khalil Ware playing in this, in addition to many others. And this is not just about these rookies. There are guys who are coming off of their rookie year who are still trying to I guess, acclimate to the NBA. Guys like Jaime Jaquez Jr., the former UCLA player for Miami, who has been playing pretty dominant in this series, which is a great sign for Miami as he continues to grow. But that's also something that maybe you can expect from like a Khalil Ware, that you're not expecting him to come in and be this dominant thing. He's got to have to learn, man. This is a step up.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Summer League is Summer League's basically, in terms of like level, it's maybe a tick higher than the G League. I mean, you're obviously getting these rookies in there that a lot of them won't play. A lot of the first rounders won't play a lot of G League, or a lot of the top 10 picks and whatnot. But obviously, there are guys in there that will. Obviously, Jarris Walker didn't get a lot of time as a rookie, and so he had to spend a lot of time with the Mad Ants. So the level of play is ultimately not a whole lot higher. It's around G League level, but that's still professional basketball. And so the G League is beyond, college basketball in terms of just, the caliber of athlete that you're dealing with. And so there's a difference. And, one thing, I was watching the Pacers last night, and they were playing Minnesota, and they had Matt Lloyd, who just got the job as Minnesota's GM on. And basically they asked him, like, what do you want to see in the G League? He's like, well, a big part of the G League is just getting used to a professional, routine. Like anything after that is gravy. I want to see good stuff out here, but mostly it's like, okay, just begin to get a sense of what professional life is like understand, like it's different than college. Some of this stuff is done for you. Some of the stuff, like, you have to develop your own routine. You have to, you're out in the wild, and you don't have to, you don't have a curfew. Like, you don't have somebody knocking on your door all the time. Like, you're allowed to be out. So, but you have to make smart choices, you have to make smart decisions for yourself, knowing that you decide how well you perform. Basically, like, theoretically you can go out to the, club or the bar or whatever in Vegas until 2 a.m. and go try to play a basketball game after that. But that doesn't mean you should. And so, you have to be responsible and whatnot, and make sure you show up for the team meeting, and make sure you show up for breakfast, and, eat right, and show up for treatment and all that kind of stuff, and just get a basic idea of what the professional life is like compared to college basketball. And so it's just the beginnings of that. Obviously, it's a couple weeks after you're drafted, you go through that whole draft process, and then you roll right into Summer League, more or less. And so it's just getting you started and giving you a basic idea of what this is going to be like, what the caliber of play is like, what's it like to play against grown men, period. There's certainly a bunch of guys that show up in these summer leagues that have bounced around, the G League, and have bounced around and have played professionally overseas. I mean, Dakota Mathias is playing for the Mad Ants. He's turning 29. He's 4 or 5 years into his professional career. He's bounced around, played overseas, played for several G League teams. He's got like maybe 16, 17 NBA games, but, it's just kind of a guy who annually is just trying to catch on somebody's roster. And you have players like that, going up against, these rookies and whatnot, and they've got to figure out, how to deal with guys with that level of experience that are just trying to cling to life and do anything they can to get on somebody's team, and hopefully stay in the States when they can. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not like, it's only so comparable to the caliber of play they're going to see, when the league really starts. Because, again, not a lot of stars are in this league, but you are seeing a couple guys that take the second year, taking the second summer league to work on some things. Hawkes, Trace Jackson Davis, was working with the USA basketball select team, just scrimmaging against Team USA in Vegas. And then basically he's now, joined basically the Summer Warriors, and he had 17 and 10 last night. Ware had a really good, first game in Vegas with 7-9 from the floor. I think he had about, 17, 18 points. So you're seeing good progress from the IU guys, but it's a very interesting event in terms of just who plays, and who goes out there and basically what they're looking for. So you're going to see maybe 1 or 2 more games from each of these guys, kind of the rookie level guys. Game 4, you're going to start to see them dig a little bit deeper into their bench and try out some of these guys they've got on Exhibit 10 contracts to see who they want to keep on their G League team, going forward. And so, like right now, there's a lot of positioning for a lot of players to see if they're going to be G League guys, if they're going to be, if they're going to have any kind of contract at all, if they're going to have to go overseas. There's a lot of scouting going on, a lot of guys just clinging to, a basketball dream right now.
Absolutely. And as that continues to move forward, what have you seen? Has Zach Edey played much?
I'm sure he has. Let me look. I got to go find him while I'm talking. I've obviously.
I haven't heard normal from your normal what you pick up along the way. I haven't heard a lot about what he's getting done during the summer league. We've seen some Kellel Ware having a great that night where he went at 26 and 11 or something.
I think so. Like Edey had a really good game in Salt Lake. I know that. And in that summer league, because obviously had this, I think there was the California one, there was the Salt Lake one. I think that's it. They played Friday. They beat Sacramento on Friday. What did he do? He didn't play. I don't know if he got hurt. He might have got dinged up, and they might have or just saw enough from game 1 they didn't feel like he needed to play again. I don't know. I'm not sure what's up there. I know he had a really good game in Sacramento, and I'm trying to remember his numbers on that. So let me Google what's up with Zach Edey.
Well, I was going to also say, is Trace Jackson Davis playing in this?
Yeah. Like I said, he had 17.
I was going to say
he had 17 and
highlight a great block. He's like kind of like Jaime Jaquez. They're taking their first year that they actually got to play, and so this is men amongst boys right now for them. This is a good time for them to shine because they're coming off of a year of, I don't want to say getting their butts handed to them because that didn't happen. But when you're going up against the best of the best, it's going to be a steep learning curve for them, which both of them had a good year in that way. And now, but to play in the summer league, man, they're like, oh, get out of here. And they're playing like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they let me see here. I'm looking at this. I didn't have a chance to watch too much of this Golden State Chicago game last night. But yeah, I mean, basically the Warriors had 2 of their rookie, basically rotation guys who played. Both Trace Jackson Davis and Brandon Przemski were guys that were regulars for them last year, and they both had double doubles. And Jackson Davis had 17 and 10. Brandon Przemski had 21, 12 rebounds and 7 assists. And so they won that game 92-82. The Bulls had some guys who had some really good games. Matas Bazoulis had a terrific game. He had 28 points. He's one of I think it was the 6th pick. And Adama Sanogo was part of that Connecticut championship team, the first one. Had 16 points and 8 rebounds going up against Jackson Davis. So that's not a bad night, for that guy. I still think he's going to be a nice player, but I think he was on a 2-way most of last year. Also had 10 fouls because you're allowed to commit up to 10 fouls in the G League. There's a lot less rules as far as that's concerned. He had 10 fouls in one basketball game. It was pretty wild. But no, I think, you're seeing some more guys take these opportunities, to have a second summer league, and you come in more, a lot more polished, even if you didn't play that much. I mean, you could see the difference in Jarris Walker for one thing, just what kind of strides he's made. He didn't have great last night, but he did hit 5 threes. If you have played rotation minutes, then you come in feeling like you really know a lot. Basically you're dealing with a lot of guys that are just figuring out how to play at the professional level. They've had maybe 3 or 4 days to get a sense of what the system is supposed to be and try to play it. And they're playing with guys that are not the same, that they're going to be dealing with. Like the Pacers are out there trying to run the crazy offense they run during the year, and basically like their fourth point guard is the guy who's running it, and Quentin Jackson. Basically, obviously Halliburton and Nembhard and TJ McConnell don't make the trip for this, so you're 4 guys deep. But so there's a lot of learning, and yeah, the guys that have been around for a year, tend to have some dominant games. Obviously, you're not going to see them play a lot. They'll play maybe 1 or 2 games and then call it a day. But Jackson Davis is showing just the ways that he's grown. He's going to be just a big piece for them going forward as a rotation guy. Second string center behind Draymond Green for now. You're going to see him, I think, just have another excellent year. I'm sorry. Excuse me. He shot 70% from the floor last year, which is nuts. And it's just, that's just a question of just getting around the rim and getting some easy ones. So you're seeing that he could still do that. So he's however many games he plays in this, he's going to be really, really good, but he's not going to play very much. Hawk is either.
Yeah, we'll looking forward to see how that goes, brother. I appreciate you as always, and I hope the rest of your week is great.
Sounds good. You too as well, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow and keeping up with what's going on with the Pacers and more in the NBA. Back with our friend Travis Miller from Boiler Upload right after this. Brought to you by Bubba's 33.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Right.
Me bad.
John's leading the show, and he's just like, screw it. I'm playing this whenever I feel like it, I guess.
Do what?
Boy, your sound is awful.
I think it's on. Let me adjust on my end. Let me try something. Say something again, Travis.
Hello?
Yeah,
I'm right here.
Let me say. I'm just making adjustments and having you test things by saying. Say something else for me.
Check 1, 2. I'm here.
There we go. Much better. Much better. Now.
All right. Sweet. Yeah, I was like, John's leaving the show. He's just like, screw it. I'm playing the ads whenever I feel like it. I'm playing it out. I'm going to cut you off like it's the Oscars.
Sometimes he doesn't give me the same out cue, and it throws me off.
Yeah.
It is a slow week this week, but at least we get Big Ten Media Days next week.
What the hell are you talking about, bro? The TBT's at the end of this week.
Let's not. The end of this week.
The end of this week? Okay. Yeah, we'll probably have something up on that. I know Jace has been writing about it whenever there's been a team announcement and everything. So
who?
Jace, our other guy.
Don't know who that is.
Yeah, he's good. He's the one that does like all of our legwork and everything and contacts all the recruits.
I thought that was Dub.
Oh yeah, that's the same. His name is Jace, but he goes by Dub.
Oh well. He goes by Dub, but I'm going to call him something different.
No, I'm going to use his legal name. Sure. I mean, gee.
Oh, the Tour de France? I didn't realize that was going on.
I think it's early this year because of the Olympics.
That makes sense.
Yes, it do.
All right. Here we go, guys.
Now, fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by The Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, and joined now by our friend Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. And you were mentioning that it's kind of a slow week, but which, yeah, the beginning maybe, but we're actually coming off of the 3SSB championship, Adidas championship in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Now the Peach Jam gets started, and at the end of this week is the TBT, which has Butler, Indiana, Purdue, and Kyle Guy's Fail Harder team playing up at Hinkle Fieldhouse. So there's a ton going on. And then don't forget there's NASCAR in Indianapolis at the Brickyard this weekend. So there is a lot going on. And shortly after that, we'll have, whatever break until, which will be very short, and fall camp starts for football, because we're not, 2 weeks away from August, and August 31st is Indiana's first game. I assume the same for Purdue.
Yeah, it's 47 days until kickoff, when Purdue will host the Mighty Trees of Indiana State, and that's the sacrificial lamb game, the game that the Trees get a paycheck and Purdue gets a 7-touchdown win, most likely. So I actually like that they're starting this year with an easier opponent. I think that will be beneficial in the long run. Last year they had game one against a really, really tough Fresno State team. And when you've got a new coach implementing a new system and everything else, that was a tough challenge. And it was a game that I'm not surprised Purdue lost. It was very competitive. But this year they get to ease into it a little bit with Indiana State, and that'll be a nice warm up, I think.
Yeah, I had someone commenting on Indiana's schedule that, knocking on how quote unquote weak it was. I'm like going, look, if you play in the Big Ten, I don't care what you do with your non-con games, because the Big Ten plays 9 conference games, people. The SEC, the ACC, those conferences, they play 8. And that's a huge difference, because I promise you, if you look at Alabama's schedule, if you look at Kentucky's schedule, if you look at a lot of these teams' schedule, you're going to find 3 games that are just like what's on Indiana's schedule. Now, Purdue is not doing that to their peril, I'm saying. They have not helped themselves with their non-conference schedule, which, while that is bold, it's not coming at a time that is beneficial for a new coach trying to get a program going. I think what Indiana's done was very, very smart. Kurt Signetti says, they're coming in. They bought themselves out of the Louisville game, which I think was very wise now, because like I said, you've got the 9 conference games already. But they're trying to get this program up and going. The same for Ryan Walters at Purdue. But man, oh man, having to go to Oregon State, having to play Notre Dame in the non-conference is not making that easier on top of their Big Ten schedule. So, hey, Big Ten schools that are, unless you're Ohio State or Michigan or Nebraska or Wisconsin or Iowa, you deserve to have an easier path, especially a team like Indiana, who's played in the freaking Big Ten East for the last 10 daggone years. They had one of the toughest schedules in the country year after year just because of that. So that doesn't bother me of the like. Now in the future, okay, maybe add a different non-con game, but still with 9 conference games already, it's tough enough as it is.
And I think that's there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, because if you're going to be scheduling a MAC school, a Sunbelt school, or something else, you got to have that money to pay it out. And I think that sometimes what Purdue does here is they're like, okay, we want one of these mutual home and homes. That way it's even. It's less of an expense to the athletic department. You look at things this year, they only have to pay, I think it's $500,000 to Indiana State, and that's their one buy game, if you will. But yeah, and also a lot of these schedules were made far, far in advance. I mean, Ryan Walters had no idea that he was going to be playing Oregon State when the first game happened 3 years ago, and this is the return game of a home and home. I also didn't think it's that challenging of a game. I mean, look at what Oregon State has had to go through in the last year. They lost their conference. They lost their head coach. They lost a ton of guys in the transfer portal. They're starting over with a new coach, new guys in the portal. As recently as like 6 months ago, they didn't even know what their whole schedule was. They were probably just thankful the Purdue game was there and they didn't have to go out and reschedule it. So I think that'll be a really, really important game for Purdue, even though it's on the road, because I don't think it's an overwhelming opponent for them to play, given where they're at. And I think it's a game that Purdue probably has to get if they're going to go to a bowl game this year, because obviously they should be Indiana State under any circumstances whatsoever. There's no valid excuse to lose that game. But you look, they've got Oregon State, they've got Illinois, they've got Northwestern, you've got Michigan State, who's going to be a big question mark. You've got Nebraska, which Nebraska is a team that I'm like, okay, you're going to need to prove it to me before I'm going to believe that, you're going to even make a bowl game, let alone challenge for the Big Ten. And you've got Indiana. So those are all games where Purdue has got to be competitive. They've got to get a couple of those because there's just not a lot of margin for error there with the way the schedule looks up. But also you want to see in year 2, Ryan Walters be able to challenge a team like a Notre Dame. You want to see them challenge Penn State at home or whatever. You want to see them maybe break the 17-game losing streak to a Wisconsin team that wasn't that great last year. So it's a schedule with a lot of toss-up games, a lot of question mark games, and a lot of, okay, if there's really improvement, you're going to be more competitive against it.
What is your prediction for the season record? How many wins are you thinking?
I think they could get to 6. I think they could get to 6 in a bowl. I think the opening stretch is going to be very, very interesting because you've got Indiana State, you've got a bye, I believe. Then you've got Oregon State. Then you've got Notre Dame, and that is a nice lead-in to what will be a big home game against Notre Dame, especially if they're 2-0. And
when they play Notre Dame, they'll be 1-0 at best. They have the bye week comes after the first week. Ironically, they play Indiana State on August 31st, and then on the 7th they are off before hosting Notre Dame on the 14th.
I got my dates mixed up. I thought they played Oregon State before Notre Dame, so that's my mistake. But that home game against Notre Dame is going to be interesting coming off of a bye too. I know Notre Dame has the really rough opener at Texas A&M, and it's a rivalry game. Notre Dame has not played at Purdue in over a decade. And, Purdue fans are going to be up for it. They're always up to play Notre Dame. It's been a while since they've beaten them, but it is an event. It is a game that they played every year for 70-plus years, and it's nice to have them back on the schedule because of that. So I think that could be potentially a turning point game for the Walters era. Does he have to win it? No, he doesn't have to win it. But if they do win it, suddenly – the rest of the schedule is like, oh, well, you can compete with a pretty good Notre Dame team. Well, maybe it's not as rough as you thought it was. And I think he needs to get one of those, quote unquote, big upsets this season. And the schedule presents plenty of opportunities for it.
As I look down the schedule, I'm trying to be as giving as possible. And the best I can come up with for Notre Dame or for Purdue is 5 wins on this season, because I don't see them beating Notre Dame. The game at Oregon State, that's I'm counting it as a loss just because it's a far road game, but there's nothing to say that they can't win that game. And then I agree with you. Nebraska is still a big question mark. Offensively, I don't know that they're going to be good enough to go on the road that early and beat Purdue. So I'll give them the Nebraska game and the Indiana State game. That Oregon State game, that's tricky, but I'll give them that win. And I think Illinois is another team that they have not, the second year under Brett Bielema, they kind of took a step back, I think. And so that momentum is not there. I could see Purdue going over to Illinois and winning that. So 1, 2, 3 wins. But then you've got and Northwestern. I'll give them that game because they're at home. But Oregon, that's a tough game. Ohio State, Penn State, at Michigan State, and at Indiana. I just don't see them winning any of those particular games.
And I think Indiana will be interesting because Indiana is improved, but again, they got to prove it because this is
absolutely
no offense. It's Indiana still. That is the perception that is going to be there until they produce a consistent winner. It's still Indiana.
But we'll know way before then that game what that's like because that's the last game of the season, and that'll be 3.5 months into the football season. So we'll know what they're like if they're for real or not.
Right. You don't know who's going to be hurt for that game. You don't know who's going to be out. It's just that those are the crapshoot games that you have no idea for near the end of the season. The only game that I think is absolutely unwinnable is probably at Ohio State. I mean, they might have a small chance against Oregon just because it is a week after Oregon plays Ohio State in Eugene, and it's a Friday night game, so they have to come east for the first time all season on a short week. Obviously Oregon is a great team. They're going to be in the top 10. They should win that game. But, weird things can happen on a Friday night game where you got to come, 2,000 miles east for the first time this year on a short week. So who knows? That's another game that could be a turning point game. Ryan Walters gets them up and he springs a big Friday night upset at home. You just never know. But yeah, I think they can squeeze out 6 wins there. I think the ones that they absolutely have to have if they're going to do that are Oregon State, Illinois, and Northwestern, and then I think they could pluck 2 more somewhere in there. I'm not convinced Michigan State's going to be that great in year 1 under Jonathan Smith. But you also have the interesting thing of Jonathan Smith was supposed to be at Oregon State. And you were going to face him one way or another. So that'll be interesting in that regard too.
The thing about the entire Big Ten this year is I'm like, man, who's other than Ohio State? Penn State will probably be good, but other than Ohio State, I'm not seeing what I call a quote unquote juggernaut this year. Last year, you had Michigan and Ohio State that were both extraordinarily good. Michigan, I'm not expecting that. They lost a lot on offense. They lost their head coach along with a lot of coaches. I'm not saying they're going to drop to the bottom of the Big Ten, but I am just not seeing them dominate like they have, especially on offense. You lost your quarterback, your running back, tight end, all kinds of just so much. And I'm like, wow, this Big Ten, even with the addition of Washington and Oregon and USC and UCLA, there's not a bunch of power coming in at the moment. Oregon, boy, they could be, I don't know how good they're going to be, but they're one of the teams that has not had a bunch of change. They've got Dan Lanning at head coach. USC hasn't had a lot of change, but they're also, Lincoln Riley is not exactly lighting the world on fire for USC fans right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how good they are.
Yeah, and that defense was just awful last year. I mean, just terrible. And if you've got a fatal flaw like that, it is very, very difficult to overcome. I mean, not everybody's going to be Iowa when you just completely are terrible on one side of the football and still somehow win 10 games. But that's another team that's going to be interesting is what is Iowa going to do this year? Are they going to be able to struggle their way to another 13-10 win 6 times a year? And I mean that is some just god awful football that somehow it works.
Well, I saw someone picking out some of the best teams improvement, and the Portal, Indiana was one of those, but Iowa was listed, and I'm like, I go, that's odd. A team that had as good a year as they quote unquote kind of had need to be that improved, but their offense was just as bad as the defense of USC. It was just when your offensive coordinator has a
1 minute
given a mandate of things they have to do or lose their job, it's tough. But I look forward to talking more about it next week, Travis, as we're about out of time. Make sure you go to Boiler Upload for all your content covering the Boilermakers and keeping up with the black and gold up there in Lafayette. Travis, thank you, brother.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
You bet. It's a pleasure as always. And a big thank you to Todd Leary, of course, from myjumpshot.com, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and most importantly, each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. We'll do it again. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.